Talk about this with Dr. Tony O'Sullivan, co-chair of Keep Our NHS Public. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Julia.
Well, apologies, that news was a lot of our time, but I just wanted to give that breaking news. What's your reaction to that news, that the deal appears to have been done?
Well, I welcome that news very much. It should see an end to the very traumatic strikes of junior doctors, which have gone on for over a year. And I suppose I regret the fact that the previous government didn't listen to them sufficiently to come to this agreement.
Well, they did listen to them. I mean, they just disagreed on the amount of money there was to spend on their pay rise.
Well, anyway, I've just answered your question. I'm pleased that it looks like a resolution and that part of the NHS can get back to business. And it's taken a very short amount of days in which proper dialogue took place. And
well, no, but you're saying it's all down to proper dialogue. Again, I don't know whether it's down to Garibaldi biscuits or custard creams being on the table at the conversation with Wes Streeting, or was it they offered more money? The Labour government was willing to offer more money to settle the strikes than the Tories were.
But at some point, any government would have to recognise the injustice of the low pay for junior doctors. I suppose part of the lesson is that taking collective decision-making to defend the interests of a staff group and the interests of the NHS as a whole actually eventually makes a government listen. And that's also true for the GPs.
Well, again, you could say holding patients to ransom is what works, and we've seen in recent months those waiting lists that were going down or actually going back up, ticking back up. What do you make also of the devote that the doctors who work in GP surgeries are having in terms of them basically working to rule cutting down the number of appointments they offer from an average of 37 to 25 a day to patients? Yeah,
well, I suppose the context really is the pattern of neglect of the NHS and the costly consequences that have.
What neglect? What neglect? They've got billions and billions extra in spending. I mean, dwarfing that message on the side of a bus.
Yeah. Well, okay. Just let me get a little bit out. The NHS percentage of funding that goes to primary care has dropped by 20% over the last few years. Mm-hmm. So that's a significant impact on primary care at a time of increased patient lists. So the numbers of patients per GP has gone up from about 2,000 in 2018 to nearly 2,300 now.
Yeah.
There are 1,700 fewer GPs now than there were in 2015 when 6,000 extra GPs were promised.
Yeah.
1 in 4 GPs know a colleague that has actually died through suicide. GPs see over 90%, or the primary care setup see more than 90% of NHS care, and 1.4 million appointments per day.
Yeah, the
risk of burnout and the risk of
burnout. Most GPs are working a 3-day week now.
Well,
they don't have to work. My mum, when she was a GP, she worked like every other weekend. She worked nights. She did. I remember her getting call-outs at 4 a.m. They don't have to do any of that. How are they all burning out?
Well, I think suicide is one indicator of burnout.
Has it risen? Do we know if it's risen or not?
I think you might recognise that, and yes, it has risen.
It has risen. Now, do we know that is the reason why they're working fewer hours, and that's the reason why?
Well, if we take a serious look at the patient first, okay. Patients are having more and more difficulty in accessing a prompt appointment, despite the fact that GPs are working harder and harder. And a lot of GPs are driven into the position where they go part-time in order to work
No, they can afford to work part-time because they got such a big pay rise a while back under a deal. They're able to work part-time. Most people aren't able to work part-time and pay their bills. So we're going to have to leave it there, Tony. I know our time was shortened a little bit by that announcement, but Dr. Tony O'Sullivan, I know we'll speak to you again soon, I do hope, co-chair of Keep Our NHS Public.